Hi, good morning, good afternoon, folks. My name is Keyur Patel, and today I have here with me Shrikant Kannan, VP of Cloud Networking at Arcus. And together we are going to talk about how Arcus is propelling digital transformation with open networking. Next slide, please. For those of you who don't know who we are, Arcus was founded in 2016. It's a hyperscale networking software company. Its headquarters in San Jose. Uh, we have been funded by Lightspeed, General Catalyst, Clear Ventures, and Liberty Global. The target customers for us include Fortune 100 companies, data centers, cloud, CDN, telcos, and service providers. Last but not the least, we have an August list of advisors that keeps us honest and focused while we're building the next generation technologies. Next slide, please. So we believe we are in what we call as a networking 3.0 era. With networking 1.0, we had networking vendors that would provide vertically integrated boxes wherein you have custom silicon, custom hardware, and then custom OS. With networking 2.0, we had the advent of merchant silicons, and vendors tried incorporating merchant silicon instead of custom silicon, but they kept on building vertically integrated solutions wherein you have merchant silicon with custom hardware and closed-knit OS. With networking 3.0, you have more and more vendors that are providing merchant silicon solutions, be it a switching or be it a routing. And then you have various different ODMs that would go out and build the boxes using this merchant silicon. What remains is a system software, which when glued over this hardware using merchant silicon would build the state-of-art routers and switches which are needed for next generation network. And we believe we are actually pushing networking 3.0 and influencing it in a great manner. Next slide, please. So the way we are influencing the networking 3.0 is through our offering of an ACE platform. It's a multi-tier platform. At the very guts of it is our ArcOS, our operating system, software that runs on routers and switches, fixed form factor routers and switches that provides anywhere from 1 gig to 400 gigs of connectivity. Then the next tier is where we have what we call our Arc Edge platform and solution that provides overlay connectivity between cloud and data centers, cloud to cloud, and within the cloud. And on top of Arc Edge, we have an API first architecture that allows us to build platforms like ArcIQ and Arc Orchestrator. ArcIQ is our analytics platform, and Arc Orchestrator is our orchestrating platform to build overlay connectivities when deployed over any cloud infrastructure. This solution allows us to connect from core to edge, helps us build a single fabric, if you will, that spans across multiple different networking segments, be it core, access, edge, and or in the cloud and data centers. Yeah, next slide, please. And the kind of use cases we are after when we build these fabrics has spanned across service providers, enterprise networks, and cloud slash service provider connectivity. In service providers, we provide routing solutions that can be deployed in peering, PE, edge access, using the fixed form factor boxes. Wherever there is a need to provide solutions for the port densities that are over and beyond the fixed form factor boxes provide, we have what we call as a virtualized distributed routing Architecture that allows us to disaggregate the chassis completely by racking and stacking fixed form factor boxes and offloading the control plane to run on the compute. In an enterprise network and in data centers, we provide IP, EVPN, CLOS solutions ranging from 1 gig to 400 gigs with deep packet buffers as well as switching architectures. And in cloud, we have the same ArcOS extended to run over the cloud infrastructure, allowing us to provide and build connectivities for our customers that could range from within a cloud to across a cloud, be it a multi-cloud or cloud to data center interconnects. Last but not the least, we have route reflector solutions that allows us to build a control plane that can scale both in service provider as well as the cloud networks. Next slide, please. So we did talk about the solutions and the deployment use cases. Let's talk about how we do it. And like I said, the guts of it is ArcOS. So we're going to talk about what ArcOS is like. Next slide, please. Here is an architectural overview of ArcOS. It's a microservices-based architecture, which means most of the components are implemented in user space, requires minimal support of Linux kernel, very containerized, extremely modular. You can replace or add any components with minimal impact. Uh, Entire system is designed with multi-threading in mind so as to ensure that we can use the multiple cores that are available to us at a workload level. Last but not the least, it's hardware agnostic. It the DPAL layer or our own hardware abstraction layer that we have designed allows us to virtualize the software to run over router or a switch or over a server. From a processor standpoint, it's Intel or ARM agnostic. Northbound is completely harmonized for us in this architecture using OpenConfig and Yang. All the back-end software components are do talk native OpenConfig/Yang. All the software components also connect to data store and store the ephemeral state inside the data store to which our real-time telemetry agent connects to and streams the data out. Um, the, the model that we use to stream the data out is JSON based, and the transport that we use is Google Protocol Buffer, Kafka, and or gRPC based. Next slide, please. Here are the competitive differences when we look at ArcOS versus anything that is out there. It's a 64-bit multi-threaded, multi-process operating system, minimal or no state in the kernel. Like I said, all user processes everything is implemented in user processes and are containerized. Kernel is not in route programming path, which makes programming of routing state very efficient and very fast. We have used in-house robust protocol stack that is built using first principles. The reason to do that was so that we can do things like telemetry at scale, and more importantly, we can utilize cores that are made available to us very efficiently at the workload levels. Fully automated provisioning using OpenConfig and Yang, which allows multiple boxes to be configured from a single point of location in cloud. Broad merchant silicon platform portfolio, 1 gig to 400 gigs that are supported today. And most important thing to note is because of the hardware abstraction layer that we have designed and defined, which is called as DPAL, it allows us to enable next generation silicon very quickly and efficiently, which means it has a much more faster time to market when you start to look at it from a switch or a router perspective. Next slide, please. So we talked about ArcOS, and we talked about how ArcOS also streams the data out using telemetry. Let's talk about ArcIQ, which complements ArcOS and its switches and routers with a deep visibility platform that resides in the cloud. Next slide, please. This platform is purely a software base, consists of bunch of containers in a microservices based architecture. And what it does is it provides a deep visibility, network visibility. It allows um, um, to render building of deep topology insights that you can create using LLDP as well as BGP as the protocol learns from these protocols and builds topologies out of it. Has a security analytics provided through RPKI for BGP route validation. It also has SFlow collector inbuilt, which allows it to collect SFlow data and provide meaningful security analytics out of it. And last but not the least, it also has interesting analytics for DDoS mechanisms or DDoS solutions that are being deployed in form of ACLs on routers and switches. It also provides cognitive insights, service insights like hardware software inventory tracking, per device usage of memory, as well as CPU utilization. In case of EVPN fabrics, it can track workloads of VMs and customers, and it has actionable and alerts that you can enable depending on what kind of visibility you are tracking with configurable thresholds. Next slide, please. As you can see, it has a very user-friendly UI and dashboard where the data is rendered in a meaningful format, be it a graphs that you are building for your networks that you have created, or processor memory that you are tracking, or routing state that you are tracking. You can see the page, or you can see the display where it renders all sorts of analytics information in a very user-friendly manner. It also has actionable alerts that we talked about that you can configure and track. Next slide, please. So we talked about ArcOS as a system that allows you to build routers and switches. We did talk about ArcIQ, which is our deep visibility analytics platform. Now we're going to talk about ArcEdge, and for this I am going to hand it over to Shrikant, who's our VP of Cloud Networking, who's going to talk about ArcEdge in details. Over to you, Shrikant.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keyur. So folks, taking a step back, looking at a summary from what Keyur presented here. Essentially, when you architect a solution for the full complete networking spectrum as it spans the data center to the service provider network, to the co-location network, and to the cloud provider network, you are contending with many different form factors, whether it's a fixed form factor, modular form factor, a distributed form factor, or a multi-cloud edge form factor. So Arcus, with the underlying founding principles of ArcOS and a microservices-based architecture, we have the unique differentiation to package our fabric or the networking software to address all these different form factors that is available, that is needed in the market today. So when you think of more interconnect between the on-premise infrastructure, whether it's a data center, co-location network, or a service provider interconnecting with the cloud provider networks, then you are looking at a complete spectrum of an edge infrastructure that completes this fabric to extend from all the way from any on-premise network to the cloud. Now, with that, the most important thing that we have to do is have a perspective on the multi-cloud challenges that you get with the platforms that are already in there. And to do that, understand the challenges here. The enterprise multi-cloud challenges ranges from And the lack of integration, performance challenges, scale challenges, and the software lifecycle management challenges. The most important thing is that the legacy cloud routers are not architected with a meaningful integration and intelligence that is needed between what in networking terms that we call as the routing layers, the layer 2, layer 3 routing layers with the overlay layers, with an IPsec overlay or any overlay technology that you need. The application connectivity today happens at the overlay layer, wherein the transport networking that is very critical happens at the layer 2, layer 3 layer. Without this meaningful integration, without an intelligent integration and having a deep understanding of all these layers, a full stack capability, you're going to go into an architecture that's going to be completely siloed. What this siloed architecture does is it introduces application performance issues. It forces the data center equipment to be upgraded because of the lack of scale. The security is going to be siloed and expands the entire surface area of attack becomes more as you do this. And more importantly, the orchestration becomes siloed. So that means an orchestration and everything for data center, a separate orchestration for your cloud infrastructure, and it becomes operationally very complex as you roll out into production. And this is what traditionally you see it in the marketplace today. There are these legacy cloud routers which are retrofitted into the cloud, and they have a very siloed orchestration that is very on-prem, or you see this quote unquote cloud native architectures that do well within the cloud, but they completely lack the on-prem integration. And when their orchestration and everything runs in AWS or Azure or somewhere, they don't have a meaningful integration into the on-prem. So you see in the market either or solution, which is where we differentiate with a combined integrated solution. So how Arcus MCM as a solution is an extension of ArcOS and the ArcOS capabilities, and the founding principles of ArcOS is essentially take the underlying platform, which is the routing engine platform based on the BGP protocols, very strong routing architecture, and be able to provide an overlay architecture that interconnects your on-prem into AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, or Oracle. And to do that, what we have done as a first step is to provide an hyperscale architecture that has a flexibility to deploy either as a hub and spoke, mesh, or a hybrid connectivity architecture, be able to scale to thousands of nodes extensively without any additional operational overhead. And one of the key things, or the key complexity that comes into picture, is the IP address management and the layer 2, layer 3 complexity. So automating that with the likes of a cloud scale NAT and support for overlapping IP addresses, all those things are already baked in. A key part of this is also security. And when you think of security, you have to think in terms of the cloud native security also. Ability to integrate with your security groups, ability to provide NACL support, ability to provide a full route table integration, ability to service chain with the third-party firewalls and security infrastructure in a cloud native way. All these things are super important, and do this with a fully encrypted session. So whether it's a data plane traffic, a control plane traffic, or a management plane traffic, we provide a full AES 256 encryption for every packet that goes in and out of the ArcEdge software that is available. And in terms of completing the solution, the orchestration is super important. Whether you are deploying this in the data center, on-premise in a co-location infrastructure, or in the cloud, we have support for the OpenConfig YANG models to automate all of your on-prem infrastructure. We have a full-fledged Arc orchestrator with an UI that enables you to deploy this in a very seamless way with the help of a UI. Or if you want a Terraform framework where you want to orchestrate this, deploy this using Terraform, we have support for Terraform. If you want to do configuration management with Ansible playbooks, where you can make these advanced configuration changes after they are deployed, it's available too. And most importantly, these are all again based on the REST API infrastructure. If you want to orchestrate this, manage this completely using the APIs, all the APIs that are built is available today to automate any which way you want. So from the day zero operation of a deployment, day one in terms of advanced configuration management and monitoring, day two in terms of upgrades, patching, and scale that is needed, and also break fix in terms of troubleshooting, we take care of the full life cycle of the requirement that is needed, not just for integrating your on-prem, but also the cloud provider network today. So in terms of the software, what we have is ArcEdge as a data plane software in different form factors. Like I said, like Keyur walked us through, the on-prem form factor on a white box, which is based on a merchant silicon, is already available. If you want it in a virtual machine, either as an on-prem virtual machine in the form of a VMDK or in the form of the EC2 for AWS or a VM for Azure and GCP and Oracle, they are integrated, available in the marketplaces today. Or if you want to do it as a microservices as part of your self-managed Kubernetes platforms where you want ArcEdge to provide a connectivity option within your self-managed Kubernetes as part of the container networking that is available today. The Arc Orchestrator is available as a package for you to orchestrate all of this where you don't handle any of the ArcEdge capabilities manually. You can automate all of the deployment management of it using Arc Orchestrator. Again, Arc Orchestrator is available in the form factor as a VM in AWS as an example, or as a REST API, or as an on-prem infrastructure where you can deploy it as a REST API and leverage the Terraform infrastructure on-prem and other things. So as a software and a solution perspective, that's a quick overview. What we want to spend time on is essentially look at how we differentiated in the market with an elastic NAT, a strong cloud native routing, and a dynamic cloud DNS features and additional features. Together, what they have enabled us is enabled us to deploy the Arcus XCN solution for both service providers as well as enterprises. So what we have today as a first case study for you, for all of you, is a tier one co-location provider with Arcus MCN, a strong co-location provider, a publicly listed company with presence in few dozens of cities across the world globally, orchestrated in about 11 cloud regions today. And in terms of the place in the market, they're probably the top 3 co-location provider. So as a requirement, when they approached Arcus, they had already tested a few vendors, didn't meet the requirement that they needed to provide a service, a self-managed service for their existing customers. So the key challenges that we had to solve here is, the first challenge is to provide a flexible architecture in terms of a white box integrated architecture, a VM form factor architecture that can be integrated with a Dell EMC PowerEdge type x86 architecture, and be able to support interconnectivity options for the customers for the AWS bare metal as well as the Google bare metal services. In doing so, we have to meet the scale, performance, as well as the orchestration that is needed. So the core of it is the virtual routing. The BGP-based virtual routing is the core engine on which all of this was built. And we were able to extend that solution as a fully packaged MCN solution to meet the performance, scale, and security, where we were able to implement this in their own cloud provider network and provide them as a completely self-managed solution that the provider can use today. Today, the product it's in production in multiple cities across the globe, servicing few thousands of their customer accounts. And we have presence in terms of the port speeds that you can talk about. These are all operating anywhere from 1 gig, 2.5 gig, 5 gig port speeds across the spectrum for many of these customers. And we have automated it in a self-managed platform where the customers are today able to go online in a service catalog fashion, be able to pull down some of these services, add as an add-on to it, and be able to automate it in a matter of minutes. What would traditionally take in terms of provisioning this as a networking software, sometimes weeks to months, with Arcus, we are able to provision this in a matter of hours and operationalize it and be able to meet the scale, performance, and other requirements for the application connectivity. And in this case, the co-location provider, who also has a strong service provider offering, is today able to provide a completely managed services portfolio to their customers across the globe. And that's the benefit, and it's in production. And we have a very delighted customers who speak about our solution strongly. The second case study, as an extension and very similar, is an enterprise case study of a retail customer. The retail customer started out as an on-prem infrastructure interconnect customer. We automated and built their entire store network and the warehouses network into with an on-prem solution that we started with. We provided them with a strong IP class overlay network with EVPN and other facilities built into it. And as part of an extension into AWS uh, as well as other cloud providers, they wanted an interconnect where the overlay services through the SD-WAN and eventually with a direct connect type service. They wanted our architecture solution to be deeply integrated into the cloud also. The key part of this is this retail enterprise has few thousands of stores, few dozens of warehouses, and they wanted a single unified fabric that not only automates a lot of their store and warehouse functionality from the on-prem perspective, but also leverage the same thing and extend it to AWS and GCP. With Arcage, we were able to extend that, be able to provide a service where sitting behind the AWS Direct Connect and an SD-WAN service, we were able to provide a cloud WAN like architecture, be able to provide them with a transit architecture that provides the hub and spoke from their on-prem into the store network, and scale to thousands of stores and dozens of warehouses that they are interconnecting with, and be able to provide this service anywhere from 1 Gbps to 4 Gbps, 4 gigabits per second direct connect services as part of the route optimizations that we can do with the BGP peering and everything, and automate this completely with our Arc orchestrator capabilities built into it. So today, this retail enterprise customer is a delighted customer. One of the key services that they were able to provision as they were hit with the pandemic is a very simple thing like curbside check-in. When they wanted to extend their network into the parking lots where you have to provide a curbside pickup and a check-in, they were able to provide the service and be able to meet the scale and the performance needed to service thousands of customers from their parking lots. And today, they're a delighted customer again and sings praises for our solution. So all this has led to few recognitions. One of the few recognition that we are proud of is Gartner, as part of the 2022 market guide, recognized Arcus MCN as one of the key vendor and a differentiated solution in the multi-cloud networking software. And also, as part of the availability, we today have the software available in multiple marketplaces, whether it's an AWS and the AWS and GCP type marketplaces, or the VMware marketplaces, or the co-location providers like Equinix and CoreSite. We are deeply integrated. The software is available today, and that has led Arcus to win multiple accounts across the broad spectrum of the customers. And as we summarize, over a period of last 2+ years, Arcus has been fortunate to win multiple accounts, not just in the data centers and the enterprises, also broad spectrum of service providers, co-location providers, CDN providers, and the e-commerce providers. As we look at our solution, all our customers are enjoying the performance and scale that we bring to their business. We have accelerated their agility, the business agility with an operational velocity, all while providing a quality software that lowers their total cost of ownership. That's the key takeaway that we want to leave with with the Arcus Connected Edge platform. And on behalf of Arcus, Keyur and I thank you for listening to this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.